What is black, white, beloved across the world, and strictly speaking, might make more sense as food? Pandas. Now, before this video gets banned in like 17 countries, let me clarify something. I'm not actually suggesting that we start grilling pandas. China might have a few thoughts on that. But if we look at pandas purely from a biological and environmental perspective, things start to get a little weird. Because pandas might be one of evolution's most confusing design decisions. To understand why, we need to start with what pandas actually are. Despite their cuddly reputation, giant pandas are bears. Real bears. Taxonomically, they belong to the order Carnivora, alongside animals like wolves, lions, and other creatures that generally prefer their food moving. And if you look at a panda's anatomy, that carnivore heritage is obvious. They have massive jaw muscles, crushing molars, and teeth that look perfectly designed for tearing through meat, which would make perfect sense if pandas actually ate meat. But they don't. Instead, pandas survive almost entirely on bamboo. Yeah, bamboo. The woody plant that most animals would politely ignore unless they were extremely desperate. So evolution has essentially given pandas the mouth of a carnivore and the diet of a confused lawnmower. Now, to be fair, pandas didn't just wake up one day and decide bamboo looked delicious. Millions of years ago, their ancestors likely had a more varied diet, including meat. But over time, pandas specialized more and more on bamboo, probably because there was a lot of it available and not many animals competing for it, which sounds like a pretty good deal. Unlimited food, no competition. What could possibly go wrong? Well, bamboo is an absolutely terrible food. From a nutritional standpoint, bamboo is basically the biological equivalent of eating cardboard. It contains extremely low levels of usable energy, which means animals have to eat huge amounts of it just to survive. And pandas definitely do. Adult pandas spend somewhere between 10 and 16 hours every single day eating bamboo. That's not a joke. Their daily routine is essentially wake up, eat bamboo, eat more bamboo, take a nap, wake up again, eat even more bamboo. If humans had the same diet strategy, we'd spend our entire lives eating celery and occasionally passing out from exhaustion. But the problems with bamboo don't stop there. Because bamboo isn't just low in nutrients. It also produces small amounts of cyanide as a defense against herbivores. Yeah, cyanide. So pandas aren't just running on empty. They're running on empty while their food is actively trying to kill them. Slowly. Passive-aggressively. Like a plant with a grudge. And because bamboo is so nutritionally poor, pandas have had to adapt in some very strange ways. For example, they developed what looks like an extra thumb. Technically, it isn't a real thumb. It's actually a modified wrist bone that acts like one, allowing pandas to grip bamboo stalks and strip off the outer layers before eating them. But after millions of years of evolution, nature's solution to pandas' dietary disaster was not, maybe try a different food. It was, here's a bonus finger. Good luck. Even with these adaptations, pandas still struggle to get enough energy, which explains another famous panda behavior. Sleeping. A lot. Pandas spend most of their lives either eating bamboo or recovering from eating bamboo, and occasionally falling out of trees, which is a real thing that happens surprisingly often. So from a purely biological standpoint, pandas are not exactly high performance animals. Low energy diet, constant eating, minimal activity, and then on top of all of that, pandas are also famously terrible at reproduction. Female pandas are only fertile for about 2 or 3 days every year, which means if 2 pandas miss that window, they basically have to wait another entire year to try again. Imagine if humans had a 3-day dating window annually. The population numbers would get weird very, very quickly. All of this raises a strange question. If pandas are so inefficient as animals, why do we invest so much effort protecting them? Part of the answer is simple. They're adorable. Pandas might be one of the most effective marketing campaigns conservation has ever produced. They're the official symbol of the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, also known as the WWF, which means a bear that trips over itself and eats poisonous cardboard has somehow become the global face of wildlife conservation. And honestly, fair enough. Cute animals raise a lot of money for protecting ecosystems. But this is where our thought experiment begins. Because while we're spending enormous effort protecting pandas, we're also raising billions of another large mammal, cows. And cows, from an environmental perspective, are kind of a disaster. Take water. Producing a single pound of beef requires somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 gallons of water when you factor in feed, crops, livestock maintenance, and processing. That's roughly the amount of water a person might use over several months for 1 pound of meat. Scale that up to billions of cattle worldwide, and cows are quietly drinking away the planet. Then there's methane. Cows produce methane as a byproduct of digestion, farts. And methane is a greenhouse gas significantly more potent than carbon dioxide over short timescales. Globally, cattle are responsible for a substantial chunk of agricultural greenhouse emissions, which is a very scientific way of saying cows are out here drinking oceans of water and crop dusting the atmosphere, and we've kind of just accepted that as normal. So let's bring this back to our bamboo-addicted, fake-thumbed, tree-falling bears. Because remember what pandas eat? Bamboo. Now, bamboo grows extraordinarily fast. It requires relatively little water, and it spreads so aggressively that in some regions it's considered invasive. It essentially wants to take over, but we've been stopping it. So hypothetically speaking, and I truly cannot stress the hypothetically here, if you replaced cows with pandas as livestock, you'd have animals eating a weed that regrows faster than we can harvest it, with a fraction of the water demand and a considerably smaller methane footprint. From a purely absurd theoretical standpoint, pandas might actually be a more sustainable food animal than cows. Of course, this all collapses immediately when you remember that pandas reproduce roughly twice a decade, move like they're perpetually jet-lagged, and are so aggressively protected that suggesting this in the wrong country could be considered a diplomatic incident. Also, they're adorable, which in conservation counts for a lot. And that's really the point. The panda thought experiment isn't about pandas. It's about how weird our environmental priorities can get when you actually look at them. We protect certain animals because they're charismatic, because they're cute, because they became a logo. Meanwhile, systems that genuinely reshape the planet, agriculture, land use, water consumption, quietly keep running in the background, too large and too normal to feel urgent. None of this means pandas shouldn't be protected. They absolutely should. Healthy bamboo forests support entire ecosystems well beyond one very weird sleepy bear. But it does mean the next time you see a panda munching bamboo on the internet and think, "Aw," maybe also think about what else is quietly eating the planet. The answers aren't always obvious, they're not always cute, but they're out there.